Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
We good to go? Okay. Calling to order the meeting of the Portsmouth Port and Industrial Commission for Tuesday, November 28th, 2023. Roll call, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everybody. I will read the roll. Ms. Allen,
Present.
Foster is absent. Mr. Hanson is absent. Ms. McSwain
Present.
and Mr. Peterman here. Chair, we do not have a quorum. I am told that Mr. Hanson is en route and should be arriving within 20 to 25 minutes.
Thank you, sir. So at this point, then we should delay the vote on the minutes, correct?
Yes, I would ask if we can move that item to the end of the agenda. We can revisit that when we have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll move forward with our financial report. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Well, thank you.
Good.
Today I will be presenting the second quarter financials ending September 30th. At the end of the second quarter, we had $881,000 in cash in the bank. We had $1.3 million in AR, which is also matched down below for the rents payable for the Lubbock Point and THCRF. We had $1.5 million in liabilities, which again includes the 1.3 that we're going to pay out and around $55,000 in AP, leaving our net position at $950,000, which is a small decrease of $45,000 for the second quarter. For our statement of revenues and expenses, we did not bring in any operating revenues just yet. We only had $1,105 in operating expenses, which were contractual and the quarterly indirect cost allocation. We paid out $50,000 in grants so far, and we have brought in $5,196 in interest. And again, our net position for the quarter is $957,000. This right here represents our year-to-date budget report, which shows what the final budget was, what we have spent, and what is left. So, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Pope. Does any other, do any other commissioners have any questions for Ms. Pope?
This is a different format than you've used before, I think. No? Because I guess, are we on budget? Are we on budget or are we above budget or below budget or?
Well, depending on the amount, it can seem like we're above or below, but for PPIC, this is normal for the second quarter. But depending on how much is budgeted versus actual, so with that big miscellaneous revenue budget, it would seem like we're way below. So I didn't want to give a percentage, but for PPIC second quarter, this is pretty normal. Not a lot of activity.
Okay, thank you.
It may be helpful to follow the spreadsheet that's on the overhead now, the year-to-date budget breakdown, which provides you with a percentage per line item showing where we are. There are a few lines that do appear to be over what the budget projections were for the fiscal year. I do believe there's a significant line which is related to investment income, and that is due to the fact that we had transferred some monies to another investment account, so our earnings, I do believe, were increased, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
For the year to date. So you'll see a pretty significant difference from the budget projection where we are today. But otherwise, I think we're close to being in line with budget that was established for the fiscal.
Any other discussion or questions?
Yeah, because what got my attention was the $415,000, you know, that's in parentheses under miscellaneous revenue. And I guess I didn't quite understand what that was.
I can, follow back on that, but we haven't, collected any of that 415. That's just what was budgeted. So I would have to go back and revisit exactly what that budget was, but that's not an actual collection or expenditure at this point. It's just what was budgeted
Okay.
for miscellaneous revenue.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Thank you, Ms. Pope. Good morning, Chris. We have our Port of Virginia update.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Great to see everyone. Happy holidays.
Yes.
Not sure that I can go 25 minutes because I know I can talk a lot. Yeah, I think everyone knows that. I'll try to be respectful of everyone's time and make sure that the comments are of that value. So quickly, Port of Virginia, I think had a very fluid and seamless holiday peak season. You know, for us, obviously, a lot of the cargo that's now on the store shelves, and maybe we've all gone out and purchased a fair amount for the Christmas season, had pretty much arrived through our terminals there in the month of September and October. We really look at it as almost like a freight normalization. We obviously had experienced 2 years of record growth, something that was great for business and great for all the different ancillary services that support the Port of Virginia in the 21 and 22 year. The freight has normalized. And so when we kind of take a look and look at a 5-year sort of look back, we're still up substantially. You know, we use 2019 as our last sort of normal year pre-pandemic. The volumes have grown in a very nice amount. We've seen substantial growth. We also have realized some pretty interesting growth in our rail segment of business, which has less of a, obviously, direct immediate impact to our Hampton Roads and City of Portsmouth community, but is a real sign and testament how the supply chain recognizes the Port of Virginia as a key global gateway to move cargo into the hinterland. So on a weekly basis, not only are we having records amount of rail freight coming and going off our facilities, but we're also outperforming the competition to the north and south. And so that's a piece of business that has grown substantially and again, positions, I think, Virginia in a really nice spot because that's part of our whole model. As we think about our local market and discretionary markets and serving as a true East Coast global gateway, we need to have these various arteries of moving cargo fluidly and swiftly to commerce. And so there's really not a port on the East Coast that's doing it better. And that's a testament to the innovation and technology here at Virginia National Gateway in Portsmouth. VIG has just done terrific. It's a great facility and continues to perform at an extremely high level. And obviously Norfolk International Terminals, and that facility is going through another expansion, or we'll call optimization on the north end. That project has begun. And so even though freight has normalized in a way, that's not such a bad thing, because as we optimize a footprint, that requires us to take it out of service. And so the north end of NIT, if any of y'all are up on that part of the either Elizabeth River on the water side or up towards Norfolk Naval Station, you'll see, even going across the Monterey Mac, you might see an empty section of our terminal. And that's the north end of NIT. And that project, like I said, has begun. And we hope to have that cargo beginning to flow through North NIT again back in about 2025. So that's sort of where we're at right now. Exciting news that was announced yesterday morning, I heard. We do now have two-way traffic in the harbor for the ultra-large container vessels. I know for many months and even years, we've talked about dredging. And granted, we've had 50-foot inbound, outbound shipping channels here in our harbor, which are terrific, but the ships continue to get larger and wider. So one of the key elements that we needed to focus on, in addition to getting down to 55 feet, 56 feet, and 59 feet out towards the Atlantic Ocean, but to widen the channels, because these ultra-large container vessels, like what we saw at VIG yesterday, I know Brian and I were over at PMT, and we could see over at VIG, ultra-large container vessel, that can now transit and allow for two-way transit. So almost two vessels can actually transit the channel at the same time. Up until yesterday or this past weekend, that was limited, and we always talked about that. The fact that the ultra-large container vessels had some limitations when they were arriving or leaving port to the two-way traffic or two-way flow of commerce in and out of this harbor. We've now eliminated that, and so that's very exciting and something where other ports are not able to replicate. but our port, the Port of Virginia, is that port that's going to allow for that two-way transit. And it's not just obviously our business, it's all the waterfront, the commercial waterfront, the military, and just how critical the movement as we experienced, I guess it's now been 2 months ago, on our tour of the working waterfront, and just the criticality of having that fluidity in place, and that's happening. So really excited. That project will be wrapped up here by the end of 2024. We'll now have, by again, the deepest and widest channels on the entire East Coast here at the Port of Virginia. So that's something to be very excited and proud about. Back on 10/27, it was a beautiful Friday. I know some of you here in the room were there for the big event that was held to just recognize the arrival of the first 8 monopiles for the Coastal Virginia Offshore Wind Project there at PMT. I hope all of you had a chance to see those as you're going either through the Midtown Tunnel or driving around town. They are massive, and we've got 8 more on the way. So this has become a common trend. In fact, that will be a sort of a 8 at a time for the next many months to come, till we get to about a stock of 64 is where we're going to get to in the spring, at which point Dominion will begin to outload those monopiles onto deck barges, which will then go out 27 miles off the coast of Virginia Beach to begin the installation of the Coastal Virginia Offshore Wind Project, 176 wind turbines. So really exciting to see that coming to fruition. The improvements underway at PMT are going well. We're past that 50% mark on the improvements that are necessary to sustain the heavy weights that offshore wind requires. And these are heavy, big objects. And so that project is going well, and targeting a final completion in about 2025 that'll be fully built out. And that's in line with the project for CVOW and what they need, Dominion that is, to support the deployment of these components to the wind farm. And so really, again, was exciting. Virginia is on the map for so many reasons. But this new industry of offshore wind here on the US East Coast, Virginia has really taken, and not just Virginia, Portsmouth has taken a position of recognition, acknowledgement of being one of the primary key supporting terminals and facilities for commercial scale offshore wind deployment. So again, really excited. We're definitely seeing a lot of interest in the market, though you see headlines like any new industry, there are ebbs and flows, and offshore wind is no different when you take into account some of the headwinds, no pun intended, with inflation and interest rates. And we've seen headlines and we're tracking various projects, but I can tell you the CVOW project is well on budget and is on time. So that's really exciting for all of us who rely on Dominion Energy to be able to have those dependable, reliable sources of electricity, and to be able to have a new industry supporting that off our coast here in Virginia. So I'll leave it at that. Don't know if there were any additional questions.
I just, when you talk about headlines, I mean, the headlines you've seen on the paper and on the news are, the Spanish company bowing out of and then of course, the people in Sandbridge not allowing cables to come ashore. Can you just comment on those?
Well, I guess for the first, with Siemens Energy, we were notified of their desire to want to cancel that lease, and that has happened. I think there are aspects around, where they've had challenges, like I mentioned, the inflation and what's going on in interest rates. So that was obviously not an outcome any of us had wanted to see or desired. But I think there's still a real desire to see localization of offshore wind manufacturing. And I say that to the entire waterfront. And that's where, Portsmouth and some of the adjacent cities here within our harbor have a unique advantage based on the overall scarcity of industrialized existing waterfront, which I think many of the developers and those that have started to, dig into offshore wind are finding that this East Coast is very developed when we think about commercial industrialized waterfront. And so there is a scarcity. So if not that opportunity, I think there are future opportunities. We have a pipeline. Just leave it at that. There's a pipeline of opportunities out there, and the city is very engaged with VEDP, the Regional Economic Development Group, as well as the port. And we all work obviously in line to sort of row in the same direction, trying to find opportunities that are going to benefit this local economy. And then, I think with the community, I can't really comment on the Sandbridge. I guess I would just say, that's a different project. That's the Kitty Hawk offshore wind project. I think looking at it, it's a neat opportunity for that to bring, Kitty Hawk to sort of interconnect there in Pungo. I know there has been some opposition from the residents and some feedback. I can tell you, Ashley McLeod and the team at Kitty Hawk have really been proactive in trying to enhance and improve the community outreach. I know they've held multiple, community engagement and listening sessions within that city. I think, quite frankly, I don't want to speak for Ms. McLeod, but I know her as a friend. I think she would be very willing to come talk to this board and talk about the impact of that project, not just to North Carolina or not just to Virginia Beach, but truly to the entire region, and talk about how the city of Portsmouth is a beneficiary because of the base of existing maritime industry that is here today, and the subsequent residents who are in that maritime ship repair, shipbuilding space, and how there are certain adjacent industry roles and functions that our citizens, our neighbors are going to benefit from when there's that Kitty Hawk wind project. And so it's on a little bit different timeline because they don't have an offtake agreement yet. As such, Dominion with CVOW does have the offtake. I think it does. But it is neat to think we have two substantial, some of the largest offshore wind developments right here, within a 50-mile sort of radius of this community, and what that might drive from an economic impact and economic sort of new industry ecosystem concept here within the harbor. I think they will. Again, I think there's a way to find a solution on the interconnect and some of the impacts that might have. And more engagement will need to happen. And I think that'll be a 2024 issue that the city of Virginia Beach will continue to look at it and find a way to get there.
Thank you. Just one other question. When we in Portsmouth were briefed on the terminal coming into Portsmouth,
Mhm.
we were briefed on what the ratio of containers leaving by rail and leaving by truck
Mhm.
were. Are we still on goal on that, or has that changed?
Yeah, I mean, it slides a point or two, and it could go, let's say, and I'll say at VIG, it's more truck. So it's more of like a 65-35 that's going on to 164, State Highway 164. So that's about, you'll see a point shift here or there, maybe goes 37 rail, down to, 63 truck. But we're in that sort of 60-40, 65-35 rail to truck mix, which is very impressive. And again, that's something that is a differentiator that other ports wish. That's a testament. I mean, especially thinking about VIG and having the Commonwealth Rail line that runs down the center of State Highway 164, just how valuable that is, and having that direct on-dock rail access, and being able to do that in such a fashion with minimal community impact. It's really it's by far, it couldn't be much better than what we.
So your increased volume is still on track, as to what you said initially.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think as the ships get bigger, you might see the rail volume increase, just by the nature of the vessels wanting to discharge more cargo at one stop. And so it's not, if you recall, vessels are not going to stop at every single port, but we have our primary, we'll call gateway ports along the U.S. East Coast. And so we kind of, in New York, New Jersey, Portsmouth, maybe Charleston, Savannah, and they kind of will go back and forth on stage, trade some freight. But that's really how the U.S. East Coast is developing. And as we see the ULCVs continuing to be the primary, the ultra large container ships, these are 1,200 feet long vessels, extremely wide. As we kind of see those continuing to be the prominent vessels calling the Atlantic to Asia, Atlantic to North Europe, Atlantic to the Med trade lane, we don't see that trend changing. And so I think it's all very, very positive for Virginia.
So if there's a change, it'll be more to rail than truck.
I think you'll see, yes, but I will tell you this, where we don't, and some of that is the nature of, we talk about the tri-state, we think of Connecticut, New York, and New Jersey. and the 40 million people that sit right there outside the gates of those marine terminals, here in Virginia, you know, we have a great mid-Atlantic location. We have a great population density, but we don't have 40 million people. And probably we probably enjoy not having 40 million people because it would impact our quality of life here somewhat. But, you know, I think you'll see rail continue to have a good trajectory. But again, the more we're out there, and I think of Wild Duck Lane and what Unis Logistics is developing, and we think of Lineage Logistics here in the city of Portsmouth, and some of the other, what I'll call infill industrial site opportunities that exist, well, that local market will also grow. And so we're taking a two-prong approach, and that's something that is very critical. We want to have that captive base of cargo, and it's why, you know, Wild Duck Lane, working with the city and the developer and trying to bridge the issues that were there, and to see it today with concrete walls up and I think a roof on the building. That's the type of development that really is going to help us grow as a community and as a port.
Thank you.
Just to add to Mr. Gullickson's comments, you know, we're seeing some increased activity as it relates to rail access in the city and our industrial sites. So we are seeing an uptick, and we're working with the private property owners for those sites, along with the rail companies, to determine how we can bring some of that additional growth to Portsmouth and build our industrial base. So we're seeing that firsthand. You know, we've seen it before. Now we're seeing the private sector following along behind that, working to support that with the creation of new industrial development sites. So we'll keep you posted as that comes further about, but certainly strong activity as it relates to rail access.
Councilman.
So just to follow up on Mr. Peterman's question about Siemens Gamesa, I've gotten many phone calls after that announcement was made, and the phone calls always start out with, well, I guess we've lost the wind project based on what I read in the paper. And so my understanding is that what Siemens Gamesa was building was a blade finishing factory. And now that they're not planning to build the blade finishing factory here, the blades are going to be finished in Europe, or shipped here.
Correct.
So really nothing is derailing. I mean, that issue hasn't derailed our wind project at all. It's derailed the fact that we were going to have some jobs over there at the port with blade finishing that now are going to remain in Europe. Yes?
That's a fair summary.
Okay. So I think we can all help dispel the rumors and kind of reinforce that the Coastal Virginia offshore wind program is still on budget and on schedule.
That's correct.
And I think it's the only wind project on the East Coast that's been through all of the wickets now, right?
I think they're still waiting on one more project, but it's by far the largest project that is going to be in construction in 2024. There is the Vineyard Wind Project by Avangrid, who's the same owner of the Kitty Hawk project, just to kind of tie some links there. But that's actually, as we speak, they have installed their first tower and nacelle over the weekend. So there is the Massachusetts project, and there's one other project that's being run out of Connecticut. And I can't recall the name of it, but by far, when you think of the number of wind turbines that are going to be installed here in Virginia, the 2.6 gigawatts, and to your point, that's on budget, on time. It's by far the largest, going to be the largest, and it's probably going to be the largest for quite a while. As you look at, again, no pun, but some of the headwinds and challenges within this current economic environment we find ourselves with high interest rates and inflation. So, we're definitely going to be able to capitalize what is going to be hopefully a very successful project, and what's been to this point a project very well run, that's been very much on budget, and is going to put us in a position that others are going to recognize globally. It's, sure, Maryland might be, oh man, they got ahead of us, but it's going to be the global recognition that Virginia and Portsmouth are gonna be able to really garner from successful completion of this type of project.
Has the Kitty Hawk project selected their construction staging location?
No, they have not.
So
They,
so it might be worthwhile to invite them to come and brief us on.
I think so. I think it would be something they would certainly have a willingness to do. Certainly they're working through their processes to get the necessary approvals, but I think, we could certainly extend the invitation to have them come before, the commission to update you on where they are in that process and then what their needs would be from a construction standpoint. I think that, our hope and expectation is that, with, the ability that, Dominion has had in executing its project, that they may also be looking to locate in Hampton Roads to achieve the same thing based
Yeah.
on the test case that Dominion has provided here. So we can certainly do the outreach and make that request, extend the invitation.
Is that an action item passed to you?
Yes, yeah, I'll add it to the list.
Okay. So, thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate it.
almost got 25 minutes on you. I almost caught us up, sorry.
The Southgate Annex update.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll ask Mr. Peterman to kind of assist with this conversation as well as Councilman Hubel, as they have been aware of some of the updates as it relates to the Shipyard Southgate Annex property. Again, we are looking currently at the area that is shown on the right, outlined in red. The land area in total is about 3 acres. You will see there are a couple of piers that are located within the boundaries of the study area. And again, this is area that is being investigated for potential use by the private sector, industrial use by the private sector. It's been determined to be somewhat of a surplus property there that the shipyard has ownership of. I did meet with their team, Captain Benton, as well as Patrick Childs, to walk the property on October 26th. It was a follow-up from some of our prior meetings and conversations, but Captain Benton hadn't really had a close look at it, so I didn't meet their team there. We walked the property. It is not a large area, again, of the entire 16-acre property. We're looking at 3 acres and it's very narrow, but it is waterfront property, which, as Chris had alluded to earlier, is at a premium in Hampton Roads. And I think there is the opportunity to find a potential end user for the land. They are interested in moving forward with making this property available. Obviously, they've got a lot of internal processes involved with that that I think go up to Washington, D.C. for ultimate approval, but they are moving forward with their assessment and then establishing what that process is. So we were able to really get a good feel for what might be possible there. And a follow-up assignment that came from the meeting was for our office to reach out to those potential end users who may have an interest in utilizing the property, which we've begun doing. So we are looking at, maritime related activities. So think, offshore wind, ship repair and fabrication. So we're trying to identify if there's anybody locally, regionally that would have a need to locate on this site. Because of some of the, size limitations and constraints as it relates to the property and the layout, it's not likely that a user would be able to construct any significant improvements on the property. So when we are talking about investment, we're really not looking at a sizable amount because building a structure would be very challenging there. So we're really looking at, probably construction, staging, fabrication uses that would have some job creation associated with it. But from a capital investment standpoint, probably not a significant number there, but certainly the opportunity to support, existing industry. So we are working to identify those potential end users that would be able to respond to a request for proposals that, the Navy would potentially issue here in the future. So we're probably a year or two out from that, but certainly doing our work now to identify some respondents that may want to pursue that.
Mr. Peterman?
No, I second everything he said. The shipyard is still trying to figure out what they want to be when they grow up as far as their footprint. Until they do that, the rest of that land is still kind of in limbo. Do you agree with that?
Well, I'd say it this way, the Navy is in the process of investing $20 billion in the 4 public shipyards. Norfolk is in the assessment phase now. This is into the shipyard proper, not this property. There's no investment going to be made in this property. But on the shipyard proper, they're in the assessment phase now to figure out how to more efficiently rearrange the waterfront. The consequences of that discussion and the fact that they're in the assessment phase and have not completed the assessment phase means they don't really know what's currently on the shipyard waterfront that might need to be moved off of the shipyard waterfront to allow the construction of the re-footprinting of the shipyard proper. And so because they haven't finished that yet, they're sitting on all of this. Even over here. So this is sailor parking right now up in this area. But this whole area is really just storage for the shipyard, and all the open area there they're sitting on until they get through the assessment phase and understand if there are things that they need to move off the waterfront temporarily while they do construction, then they would presumably move it here. That construction, the shipyard proper construction, probably isn't going to start until 2025. And I would imagine it'll be 2030, 2032, somewhere in there for them to finish all of that. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to tie up this property during that whole time. In fact, they might not tie it up at all, depending on what is finally decided. But I think our thinking is we need to stay on top of the shipyard as they're coming through those decisions, because if the adjacent property that I just pointed to ends up not being used by the shipyard, then we want to engage them to extend beyond this little skinny waterfront area out into the entire area that's kind of cordoned off there in gray, because then it becomes a big chunk of property with waterfront access that we hopefully can interest business to come and roost. Mr. Peterman and I were at the joint MEDAC yesterday. So MEDAC is the Military Economic Development Advisory Committee, and this group is Norfolk, Virginia Beach, and now Portsmouth. So we were out in Virginia Beach at a joint meeting yesterday, and they announced during that meeting that the Virginia Beach City Council just approved a resolution that sets in motion the use of military property around Oceana for the same kind of potential investments. That process has been, was really started in 2019, a collaboration between the Navy, the city, to figure out how they would first what properties available to be leased And then secondly, how the Navy and the city could collaborate, much like we're trying to do with the shipyard, to get people interested. And so there's an RFP that's been on the street, that closes this coming Friday for the first piece of Oceana property, to kind of, and that will be the first of these deals in the region. So we have Virginia Beach and the Oceana Air Station that are kind of paving the way on how to do this. And so we'll need to keep an eye on how that progresses as well, and not reinvent the wheel, because the wheel is being invented out there on how to do this. Just for clarity, so if a business wants to use this property, there's no cash involved. The lease is paid through service in kind to the Navy. And so I think one of the things that was discussed at the MEDAC yesterday is that the city is actually involved with the Navy in trying to determine what service in kind might look like that would benefit the Navy, basically to cover the lease cost. And so that's another area I think that we can learn from Virginia Beach and try to figure out, if and when we're able to do what we're talking about doing, what might service in kind look like. It doesn't necessarily have to be to the shipyard, but it has to be to the Navy at large. Anyway, yeah, there's a trail being blazed out in Virginia Beach right now. We just need to keep our eye on that and learn from it.
Yeah, and that's Steve Herbert that I talked to you about before the meeting started.
Yes, and I've had some conversations with Charlie Bowman at the Virginia Beach Economic Development Office as well about their process. So we're aware of what types of agreements have been established or in place, and working through the process. We will continue to monitor that, but I do think it's a good example on how it can be done, for sure.
Okay,
Yeah, there's something like 770 acres around Oceana and a handful of parcels that are going to be made available for economic development. So they really are blazing a trail.
7 parcels, I mean, we could parcel this one out as well. But the trouble is, if you give away the waterfront and all of a sudden everything else becomes available, you just decremented the value to it.
Yeah.
To the whole project. And, and the first parcel is 113 acres and the total is 770.65 is what they briefed. And I guess the buzzword was in-kind remuneration. Which you can't give money, you gotta give service. Or something. Thank you.
thank you very much. Welcome, Mr. Hanson. We now have a quorum, correct?
We do.
Okay. New business?
We don't have any new business, but if perhaps since we do have a quorum, if we can quickly need to adopt the minutes from the
Yes, and then go
October
to closed session.
Yes.
Okay. Before you have the minutes of the October 24th, 2023 meeting. You are in need of a motion for approval and a second.
I so moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, roll call vote, please.
Ms. Allen,
Yes.
Mr. Foster is absent. Mr. Hanson,
Yes.
Ms. McSwain,
Yes.
and Mr. Peterman. Here, the item is adopted by the 4-0.
Thank you. Mr. Peterman, there is a need for us to go into closed session. As Vice Chair, would you read the motion, please?
I move to go into a closed session pursuant to Virginia Code subsection 2.2-3711 A3 for the purpose of discussing the disposition of real property where discussion in open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body, specifically regarding the disposition of 3920 and 3930 Burton's Point Road.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. We are now in closed session. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Thank you.
No problem.
Ms. Allen,
Yes.
Mr. Hanson,
Yes.
Ms. McSwain,
Yes.
and Mr. Peterman. Yes. Here, by vote of 4-0, we will now close.
I hereby move that each commissioner certify that to the best of his or her knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements under Virginia Freedom and Information Act. And two, only such public business matters were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened, were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting just concluded.
Need a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Allen,
Yes.
Mr. Hanson.
Yes.
Ms. McSwain,
Yes.
and Mr. Peterman.
Yes.
Here, the item is adopted by a vote of 4-0. We're now in an open meeting.
Thank you.
We have a motion to add to the agenda the the resolution. Yes, please. Thank you.
Second. So we're looking to add a resolution regarding Burton's Point
Yes.
Road to our agenda.
Yes.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
If I could just clarify, the second was Ms.
Ms. Swain. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion.
Ms. Allen,
Yes.
Mr. Hanson.
Yes.
Ms. McSwain,
Yes.
and Mr. Peterman.
Yes.
By a vote of 4-0, the item has been added to the agenda.
All right. Before you, you have a resolution in regards to 3920 and 3930 Burton's Point Road. Mr. Miller, would you read
Yes.
that resolution, please?
I will. Thank you. Whereas SFG Properties LLC or its principals or affiliates individually and collectively defined as the developer has proposed to purchase 3920 and 3930 Burton's Point Road, tax parcels 0387-0041, 0387-0030, together with an approximately 30-foot strip adjacent to 3920 Burton's Point Road, collectively defined as the property. Whereas the developers offered to purchase the property for a price of $150,000 per acre for an estimated total of $1,959,000. Whereas the developer intends to develop the property for industrial use, and whereas a portion of the property has been in public ownership for approximately a decade, and the remainder of the property has been in public ownership for multiple decades. Whereas the conveyance of the property and the performance of improvements by the developer will increase the city's tax base, provide job opportunities for a portion of residents. Now therefore, it's hereby resolved that one, the chair and vice chair are each authorized to execute a letter of intent and a purchase and sale agreement on behalf of PPSC to convey the property to the developer for the purchase price. Two, the chair, vice chair, secretary, and their designees are each hereby authorized to take such further actions and execute such further applications, documents, and instruments, including without limitation, the agreement and a deed conveying the property and related closing documents as may be necessary or desirable in furtherance of the conveyance of the property to the developer in accordance with the agreement, as the same may be amended from time to time. Provided, however, that any material amendment to the agreement reducing the purchase price shall be subject to the prior authorization of the Board of Commissioners. Three, this resolution shall be effective immediately upon its adoption.
Okay, we have the resolution before us. We will need to have a motion. Do we already motion? We need a motion and a second to approve the resolution.
Move to approve.
We have a motion and a second to approve the resolution. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Ms. Allen,
Yes.
Mr. Hanson,
Yes.
Ms. McSwain,
Yes.
and Mr. Peterman.
Yes.
Chair, the item is approved by a vote of 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving forward. Any items submitted by commissioners? Done. Report back.
Do not have any report backs, but I do have an announcement that I would like to share. And that is that we have added, yet another team member,
Yay.
here, just, yesterday, actually. And that individual is Mr. Christopher Tillett. Chris, joined our team and started on Monday as our manager of business development. And I would like to welcome Chris, to the meeting, and certainly, Chris, if you have anything you'd like to share with the board, I want to provide you that opportunity.
Good morning, everyone. As Mr. Dunn said, I'm Chris Tillett. I'm really excited to be here. Most recently, I came out of Hampton. I did a year and a half in their economic development department. And before that, I did about 7.5 years in Norfolk economic development. So new to Portsmouth, but not new to doing the good work we do in economic development. And again, I'm excited to be here and closer to home. So I look forward to working with everyone.
So you live in Portsmouth?
I live technically in northern Suffolk, but like right on the Portsmouth, Chesapeake, Suffolk kind of area line. Going across the Monitor Merrimack and hitting the tunnel on the other side was too much, and wanted to do more closer to home.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, hearing no other,
Any other,
go back.
items for you? Other than to share, we are in the process of finalizing the details for our annual, business appreciation reception. We do that at the, holiday season every year. We are looking, to hold that again. The date for that is December 14th. You should have received a, save the date, and, we'll be providing some additional details, as it relates to that here very soon. But we do hope that you're able to join us and attend on the 14th. And we'll be sending those details out shortly.
Thank you.
Just one thing, I have commissioners, writers and consent. They're just gonna do it, right?
So that's at the city
It's
council.
the city council decision, but I do believe that the city clerk is looking at that process now, and I think we'll be working with city council.
And we have a closed session tonight to discuss board and commission appointments.
Hearing no other business, this meeting is adjourned.